Hello, welcome to Graduates in Denial, and it's me, Devin. Currently, this is a test run for a mobile game Let's Play. So, I will be playing Injustice iOS, because it's a game that I play a bunch. Alright, so at the time of this recording, fairly, it's like Thursday afternoon. And I know for most of y'all, some of y'all might have heard about the new fighters announced for Smash, in spite of the alleged Grinch leaks. To be honest, I'm kind of happy that I'm pretty happy that Incineroar made the cut. I mean, I haven't really been playing Sun and Moon like I wanted to, I guess just due to school at the time. But I definitely want to play him as a wrestling character. I like grapplers. One of the games that I played, the last fighting games that I played most recently was Injustice 2, and I really enjoyed playing as Bane, and I just liked his grapples. It's actually very funny in regards to Injustice because I mostly played the first game as a mobile game. So I had the console version, but when I had it on the 360, I didn't have online, and so I just played the story mode and it was done. And then by the time that it came out on the PS4, it was basically like Game of the Year edition. So I just played the story mode on that. I even tried to get the let's get some music put back on, just because the audio is not really there. So I'm just gonna have some producer type beats or whatever. So hopefully after this I'll definitely give much needed credit.
I just like the sound of it.
Let's see. Looking for Cyborg. Yeah, so as I was saying, I didn't really play Injustice 1 too much outside of the mobile game, and to be honest, I feel like the mobile game definitely had a lot more support. You could play as Static Shock, or more so Static. You could play as Darkseid before they put him behind the fucking pre-order bonus in the second game. Let's see, yeah, switch him out. And so even now, it's just a lot of the characters and the skins, they pretty much just come out on there. Yes, as you can see, I've played this game quite a bit. I played it a lot over the years. It's hard to believe that this game came out roughly 5 years ago. So, okay, so I need Cyborg. Let's see, his regenerates teleport tapped out. So, let me just do something thematic. Let's see, Sinestro. No. I want Hawk Girl. Utilize that tag in, tag out bonus.
I just like the sound.
Regular Hawk Girl. And, let's see, who else benefits? I think I'll go with Nightwing. I was gonna do Black Adam, but I feel like this is much easier, to be honest. I feel like Nightwing kind of just eats through everything. So, let's see, let's get some gear. Sorry, online. So, we're gonna equip him with some, just something light, some power generation, and something that will definitely stun him. And so yeah, definitely going way too OP. I'm using 3 golds against a more likely bronze team. Yeah, definitely didn't need the gear. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I've already started down this path, I would definitely switch out. But yeah, the Nintendo announcements, I feel like they were pretty cool. I was kind of disappointed when they showed Shadow the Hedgehog as an assist trophy. Just because I feel like, Shadow the Hedgehog would work as an Echo Fighter. I mean, or even Knuckles, or Tails, or someone. I mean, hell, when they did Samus ended up having with the Dark Samus from Echo Fighter, they made changes. That's kind of the whole point and stuff. But at least, with there being a representation would have been cool. The spirit system seems very, it kind of reminds me of Heralds and Heralds when Ultimate Marvel vs. very nice. I'm kind of curious. It would be nice if they kind of like integrated like the premise in regards to the fact that the characters are like based on reality and like toys, coming back
I
to
just like the sound of it.
like a kid's imagination, which I guess had been always somewhat hinted or speculated at, but never really like transparently stated. At least in like from what I can remember, of course, there's probably like somewhere that'll be like, well, actually, um, just through like game theory and shit like that. But I think to kind of have it, I do hope that there is some mention of a story mode or some type of like like just like something to just integrate people. Honestly, like I feel like kind of like they like Super Smash Brothers has like a lot of like interesting lore. I feel like that's kind of like even though Infinite kind of dropped the ball on like a few things or whatever, and just like through whether it be kind of just like through the character models or even just like such a polarizing gameplay, I feel like the story mode was like pretty cool, in the which is just like you know combining these two worlds, which is always kind of like the cool element of like seeing how certain things interact with each other, even just like with like Marvel 3, like the story trailers or even just like the opening videos, and I guess just like the mild like comics and like the endings and things like that. Like I feel like if like with nowadays like you have like with like a lot of like NetherRealms like comic book like adaptations for the games and the preludes, I feel like something like that would definitely be like a simple like no-brainer for Marvel, especially just with how they like to make books off of that are outside of its continuity anyway. Like I think they did one with the what was it, the Contest of Champions, which I believe was like a story prior to, but they definitely like brought it back, and like they have like a lot of like interesting characters, because I believe that's where Peggy Carter Captain America comes from, and even then they're still kind of like they ended up having put her in like the Exiles book. Um, so okay, all right. So all right, Cyborg is out. I could do a refill, but I kind of don't. So I'm just gonna use Bronze Cyborg just because I feel like this was uncomfortably like quick. Like I'm not even paying attention. I mean, like 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 uh yeah. But no, like I feel like just like always wanting to incorporate the worlds, and like be like there's a lot of like paperwork and shit like this, so it's kind of like like you want to be able to utilize these things as much as can be. But granted, like like a lot of the stuff is like Nintendo doing shit within its own house, but of course you still have like some guests and things like that, so you always want to utilize the properties that you have, especially just like with nowadays, like it's like the the internet's always watching, and so it's kind of like like if you do some shit that people don't like, especially just like with these like characters and things like that, um it'll always feel like a wasted opportunity, like always, it never fails. So I think that will always be cool to just like integrate the properties, and you just want to like like I mean like it's based on the whole concept of just like getting your favorite action figures and just like bringing them together. So that's just something I hope that they like build on. um and then recently they also added the piranha plant, which I feel like is like kind of like nice. I mean they had like for a lot of, I guess like that's more of like the NES era, in which like you have like your Rob the robot, and then Game and Watch, Duck Hunt. Um, it feels out of place but in place at the same time. Um, I think just like with like fighting games or games that are roster, that involve like a particular roster that aren't like like sports or something like that. There's always gonna be the sense of, well, like the piranha plant being in means that Shadow had to be taken out, and so I think that'll always be polarizing. I remember with Marvel 3, that being the whole thing about with Shumagurath in regards to just like it replaced Venom and stuff. I feel like I'm talking a lot about fighting games. It's probably maybe because I'm playing a mobile port of one. But yeah. Okay, will that hit? No. No, it will not. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, to be honest, I feel like I enjoy this like iteration of Cyborg distinctly reminds me more of like the version of Cyborg from like the Teen Titans show. I feel like it I wonder if it has to do with the fact that it's like he just has broader shoulders, like his build. Like I don't know, like I feel like the regime version of Cyborg looks too much like a Transformer. Alright. And so we got a Bronze Pack, a Nightwing, a Green Arrow Blast, and a Raven. Actually, nope. Shit. I missed the boat on that. I probably, because then I would have been able to promote to Elite X. Okay, only silver characters are allowed. Yeah, I feel like with the breakthrough mode, I feel like I'm feeling like a personal resurgence to kind of want to go back and like look through some of like the silver characters that I maybe like might have looked over, like Regime Nightwing. I think he's very interesting. Um, like I x'd out, or rather x'd up, Green Lantern, Harley Quinn, Lex Luthor, and the Flash. I started on Deathstroke, but I kind of stopped. I think just like kind of like creating the versatility is always nice, especially just because like this game is so far in, and like for me, it's just like like oh these are just silver characters, but before I kind of just like really got into like a streak of just like getting a lot of golds, like I really enjoyed silver characters. Like my big team that I used to play a lot with was Regime Flash, Regime Green Lantern, and then Deathstroke. It wasn't until like I wanted the team like a all three team bonus that I got with Insurgency like Sluther. But I always enjoy like Deathstroke, like like his the playstyles, like it's always kind of like fun. Whether it's just like using the pistols, using the sword, and then of course like a lot of his like gear benefits like critical hit damage, so it's just like quicker to kill. But like I think like a lot of the Harleys that I use are always gold Harleys. Like I never really used the bronze Harley or the silver Harley. I mainly used Arkham Harley because that was like the first gold card I got through just like to like the WBID like glitches and stuff. And then when animated Harley came out, I was just like I got to get on that, especially just because like her bonus, like providing 20% damage and health generation and stuff, like just like always like always you always want like like your support characters and stuff like that, just because like like there's like a lot of bonuses, and then just like playing online like back then it's like my gear wasn't necessarily like the best, so you just like want characters that can kind of like boost you up as much as possible, and then just like try to like like make do with the combination of the gear and as well as just like the and the boosts that are supplied to the team, and just like trying to create team synergy. Like that's the thing I like about this game. It's very much a team building game. Like a lot of the characters, like my favorite team that I like, or like iteration of characters that I use are like the Red Suns. Primarily because like the Blackest Night characters didn't really come into prominence until much later in regards to the meta game, and then Flashpoint so much of the Flashpoint characters, like save for Batman, are based on online play. Like, and even some of the Blackest Night characters too, like Superman and Doomsday, which I believe is out Doomsday is out currently. I just did the Superman one, and like you can get like gold top 5%, and you only get one, and you can't promote it, and it's like that's always like annoying. Which because like they're really good characters, like they're very strong. But Red Sun, I feel like is just like always a bit easier, just because at least at the time you could buy the packs, and recently like they had the packs out, and back then it was just Superman, Solomon Grundy, and Wonder Woman, and so it was kind of just like a bit more convenient due to the fact that it was just like only those three. And then so when it came back out, it was like, oh, it could possibly be you know, like Red Sun, Deathstroke, Red Sun Green Lantern, Red Sun Batman. So almost pretty much just like there's like 6 Red Sun characters now. So it's kind of like you have to really like you get to mix and match, which I always enjoyed, because I liked playing as Red Sun Deathstroke. I enjoyed Regime Flash because you could like move faster, and like my mindset was just like, the faster you can move, the more you can hit. Especially with Superman kind of being like slow, and this is before I found out that you can possibly like link Superman's heavy into a flying punch, or at least like it. So like that was just like, so like for me it was just like kind of like, all right, I use Deathstroke for the speed, Wonder Woman for the power regen, and then of course Green Lantern. Although sometimes I might like mix it up, I might use like maybe Deathstroke for the speed, Solomon Grundy for the health, and then Green Lantern for like the protection, because it would be like reduced 20% on the specials and supers, and then you're immune to stun and critical hits, which, as I mentioned with Deathstroke, and just like the characters, and just like the way like a lot of characters like the method is just to hit hard and hit fast, or just like hit hard as you can. Being immune to critical hits is very important, and then being immune to stun is just always nice. Even before the Cloak of Destiny gear, you don't want to, you never want to be stunned, because especially with the way the AI works, or even just like how like being played against on a online like an AI defense. Once you're stunned, sometimes it's like you can like G off some really dangerous shit that you would not have been able to get off otherwise. So that's always fun. I hope the Phantom Zone comes back. I feel like it kind of came and went. Let's see. I think we might get to this really fast. So let's get this bread. Alright, I'm gonna switch them out for something. Like, let me use Regime Nightwing. I'm gonna use regular Black Adam, and I'll use Wonder Woman. Strangely, I have yet to actually, despite being probably like one of my favorite characters to play in Injustice 2, I've yet to actually level up a Bane to 50. I mean, like I had them on 40, which would have been fine in like the older, like I guess like the near vanilla days or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like he's very slow, and like a lot of his skills are more oriented towards like like getting the shit beat out of you. So it's like like, oh, at like 20% health or 10% health, Bane gets a lot of speed. Bane gets a lot of like like power generation. It's never really kind of like hey, like anything that's kind of like, it doesn't require you to lower your health. And it's like a similar thing with like the Superman regime, and like the like a lot of the like the original Superman cards or whatever. Like that's why like Like the one, that's why the Red Sun Superman was like the best, because it was like, you know, Regime Superman was strong, but and then like he was cool, but then he was also cool because he had like the unblockable, which is like nice. Um, but it was still kind of like the ability. It wasn't really kind of like, it wasn't necessarily beneficial. So it's kind of like the stats were its saving grace, and then like regular Superman, like like all of it was like increased speed, increased damage, but Red Sun Superman had the ability to like for each Red Sun character it would be an additional 25 to basic attacks, which means that even just Red Sun Superman by himself, you still have your team has increased basic damage, which back then before Gear, any boost that you had was solely based on the stats or any team bonuses. So, which is why I used a lot of like Regime Flash and Regime Green Lantern, because it was like that was the only way to really kind of like put your team, to give your team a slight edge without like gear that could heal. And the only person that could heal was Harley Quinn. But I guess I just like preferred to use like I guess like the boys still in high school, so like that patriarchy, that and the fact that like like they were heroes, so it's like, oh, like it's much cooler. But they had like their team like passive and stuff. I mean, like I guess it's really just more so the fact that like I just thought the characters were cool, which is kind of why I was like I was very reluctant to use Lex Luthor. Like I really didn't use them until I was just like fuck it, I really want the bonuses. And for this one, Sinestro must be on your team. Interesting. Yeah, I never really used Sinestro. The green, because it's basically regular, silver, and then the one that's based off of the movie, which I mean, I guess is okay, but it's based on the movie, and like the shitty one, which is kind of why I never really liked the GL's base costume in this game. Like I always liked the Regime costume. It looked cooler. So I never really used that one too much. Yeah, I'm so excited that it's like an actual Martian Manhunter, because this one I got through booster pack, so it's kind of like like I can't really get it to Elite X without having to like more or less grind for the money. Same with Shazam too. Like it's like this game really rewards you being on your grind and shit. So let's see. Right. You know what? Fuck it. I was mentioning Harley, so let's actually use her. And they couldn't get any Will Smith voice over for Deadshot. That would have been really cool. Very interesting. Yeah, I feel like they took a lot of what was working for Injustice Mobile and put it into Injustice 2. Like I think mobile gaming is very kind of like cool in that way, where you can kind of like it's almost like you can kind of get an idea of what works and what doesn't, and then use them more towards like your console releases. But the thing that sucks about like the mobile games is that like it's almost kind of like it's like a it's like quicksand. They get stuck in it. It's like shit, why work to put out a game that like might come and have to compete with the Call of Duty, when I can put out some free shit essentially and just have it be like where you end up just paying for extra energy or extra lives, or do you want this premium character? Well, guess what, you only have 5 hours to unlock it, and the only way you can do it is you're playing the game like 10 times, but it costs like 30 energy to play it one time, and you only have 35, so you basically kind of like gotta gear up, and it's like a once in a lifetime thing, and even then we still might put it behind some RNG. So I think that's kind of the thing about like mobile gaming, is that like there's kind of like console gaming already has like shady practices, but a lot of the shit comes from mobile gaming. And I mean, it makes sense because, you know, like, it's free, or like at least it appears to be free, you know, but like what you're not paying in money, you're paying in time. And like that, and so, but like the way that it's like weirder with games is that, like, you know, you're paying the money, like that, like, you know, like playing, like the idea of things being locked behind, you know, RNG in like games like Call of Duty, like Black Ops 3 or whatever, is really fucking bizarre. Or even just like virtual currency in like the 2K games like WWE and NBA, which I guess like games always had like a type of currency, virtual currency anyhow, but it was kind of like, but like I feel like the difference was is that like the virtual currency you got in the game, like in like I don't know, like for instance like I don't know, like for playing like I don't know, like SmackDown versus Raw 2, like 06 or whatever. Like it would cost money to, like, I think increase stats and like to like buy shit for like your superstar's house or whatever, or even just like to unlock like legends and shit. You know, like yeah, there'd be in-game currency, but at the same time it was kind of like they weren't. It rewarded you playing the game, but it rewarded you fairly, so like there was no need to worry about like, well, oh, how, like, are they gonna fucking break my balls for me to get $1 million? It's like, oh, hey, you want that smoking skull belt, don't you? Well, you gotta pony up, and then all that shit to just like play it again, which is kind of why, like, you know, I feel like I feel like the thing that's like kind of like, you know, it sucks about like the games as a service model is that the games that would really benefit from it aren't using them. Like sports games, I feel like sports games that have yearly releases should kind of do what fighting games do, and kind of just like, you know, depending on what, like, you know, like say for instance, you know, you buy NBA 2K15 or whatever. If you want to get NBA 2K16, then you pay like, you know, $20 for the jump. But if you're like, you know, wanting to get fresh, you pay $60. But then if say you, and like each year it's kind of like you pay for the jump versus like having to pay for all new shit and then having to you know, restart from scratch and then pay virtual currency in each of those iterations. I feel like now what was starting to happen is like you have people that are starting to like reel back from these games for those exact reasons, you know. It's like, it's kind of like the cost of entry and like the amount of investment, it's never worth it because you're paying a lot for the game, you're paying a lot for the virtual currency, and then it's like not even as though, and it's like the games are very much aware of the fact that, yo, we need the virtual currency and shit like that. So it's just always a lose-lose. It's like you can't win because it's like, you know, there's always going to be people that are, you know, like, I guess, like, if I could write a word, like, naive to it, or indifferent, honestly. Like, in a lot of it's just about, like, resources and access at the end of the day. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like there's always gonna be someone who takes it. So, and it's not even necessarily their fault, because it's like, you know, a lot of this shit really boils down to fatigue. You know, it's like Insecure. Like, you know, like when we first meet Issa and Lawrence or whatever, Issa's like fucking fatigued as hell. He's tired of Lawrence. She's tired of Lawrence and shit like that, you know. And I think that's what it's a lot of it with like these games. It's like, you know, we meet Lawrence season 1 and we don't meet Lawrence season 2. Like, for some of us, this is the Lawrence season like 1. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, I'm tired of this shit and things like that, and, you know, it becomes a bit of a jaded experience, unfortunately. Let's see, I have some of this Sinestro. I'll go with the bronze. I'll use like 2 bronzes. Actually, all 3. Actually, no, because if I use 2, I might use Dark Side. Kind of want to get some character variety for y'all. This is a test run, so hopefully, you know, see how people like it. I think it's definitely something that works on like my computer. It's a video game, and just trying to, you know, integrate myself more with y'all. So yeah, but no, like I feel like definitely just like the games as a service software model would be most beneficial the with sports games, especially because like a lot of the times they're using the same engine anyway. Like there's not really that big of a jump. So, like even like with 2K, like some of the moves are from fucking like 1999 in regards to just like with like some of like the older wrestlers and shit like that. So I feel like it can definitely make the jump. Let's see. Use like super. I really can't. It's really hard to like. I feel like I remember what this game like super looking like Bruce Willis like a lot. Like I think it was just like the wrinkles on his face and just like of course like being like a bald white dude. Like, yeah, I will say Bruce Willis is probably like one of the few bald white dudes that pulls it off without looking like a neo-Nazi. Like, definitely is, right? Alright, we're on 30 minutes. So hopefully this is like a nice chunk of content. Yeah. What else is going on? Fucking Joe Budden. Like it kind of like, you know, reminding everyone why the podcast works so well when it's all three guys. You know, I think it's very strange that Joe Budden of all people is kind of like a bit against Brittany Renner using, I guess, having a tell-all book when more or less like a lot of his prominence or whatever, or his insight is essentially him being a tell-all. You know, like it's like, you know, it's like you know, like Brittany Renner being hoed. Like what's the real difference between Brittany Renner being hoed by Colin Kaepernick and Joe Budden being hoed by the industry? You know, it's kind of like there's really, I feel like the idea of like tell-alls or whatever, like, you know, it's kind of like it is what it is. And I think kind of the way he was like yelling at fucking Scotty Beam on fucking State of the Culture was really unnecessary, but also kind of just like, maybe if I'm doing a rebrand and it's working and shit like that, like, you know, maybe I don't need to fucking, you know, be like yelling at a woman or whatever when I have a big history of like DV against women and shit like that. Especially just like the way he posted it too. Like it was just like, I'm gonna leave this here. Like, what the fuck? Like I felt like he imagined it going very differently. Although the irony of it is, I feel like in a way it probably went the way that he wanted it to, because there were definitely like niggas there like, yeah man, like hold these women accountable, yada yada, like Scotty Beam hates women, or not hates women, hates men, like wants them all locked up or whatever, which is kind of like, no. Like it's just like like it's always just men going back to who hurt you, but strangely the answer is like like all is like, it's like, but a lot of times with the answer usually it's like, oh, a man did. So it's kind of like, what's the point, you know? Like it's just like some very weird shit. Like I don't get it. Also just like the idea of like men, like, oh, like, you know, like men not being able to monetize their gossip or whatever, when it's just like, you know, like if a man would have a tell-all book, it would have been looked down upon. And I feel like that's just not I feel like it wouldn't, but like I feel like it's like a hard maybe. It's also just like the fact that men fucking gossip for free, honestly. Like as someone who's just like been to like, you know, like college, or not even like high school, or just being a guy in general, like shit, like it's just like men gossip a lot. And I feel like that's been like definitely one of the notable points of this whole like Drake and Push shit, is that men fucking gossip a lot. Which isn't to say like it's like, you know, like I think less of men or whatever, but I think it's just like the idea that it's just so associated with women is kind of like, all right, relax. I mean, shit, even like the irony of it is that shit, the a lot of where the gossip goes down is like the barbershop. Why do you think LeBron decided to fucking make that show? I mean, it's just like, it's essentially just niggas talking, really, like, and that's where like a lot of folks do like the most like chatting and shit like that. And so it's kind of like, the issue is that men just don't monetize it. To be honest, like, it's kind of like the whole shit with like men, like, it's like dick not having any value truly, it's like like dick has no value, just like men's gossip, because men gossip about anything. And it's like, like, I feel like with a man tell-all book, like, it wouldn't really be interesting, or it would just be like chatty for the reasons that like most people probably don't care about. And then it's like also just the fact that men can't, like, the irony of it is like most male gossip or whatever, like, and shit like that, it's usually like, oh, like, I can't use it to get the bag. And it's like, no, like, you're right, they can't, but they usually just use it and it ends up fucking up someone else's bag. Like it does the reverse opposite. Like, men talking about like, oh, like, I fucked this girl or whatever at the office or whatever. Like, it's not really like, you're not gonna secure a promotion, but you are gonna tarnish the reputation of the woman at the office or whatever. So it's like, I think it's just like I feel like with guys, it's just like everything we touch is like, it's like fire. Like, I think we don't have the Midas touch or whatever when it comes to certain things, and I think Joe Budden kind of like getting mad at that is very weird, like because all that shit is essentially like, his show is a gossip show, and I enjoy the show. I enjoy Joe Budden as a podcaster, but I was never really listening to Joe Budden for the music. That's more my brother. My older brother, he likes Joe Budden. So like I was never really like, too big on him like that. So for me, it's kind of just like, yeah, but like to me, that is your brand. Your brand, like, just like being a personality. As well as the fact that like shit, like a lot of his music is tell all shit too. Like, I remember like Joe Budden very much he was very much ahead of his time when it comes to just like the intimacy, whether it was like being a radio personality or just like, like reality TV or vlogging. Like, there's like, if you go on his like YouTube page, there's clips that date back to fucking 2008 of him just look like Tahiri and shit like that. Like, it's very weird. Like, I think the hypocrisy of Joe Budden, I think, is more alarming. And I think just like kind of like, like just like the, like, I don't know, just like the do you hear yourself, like, kind of like factor, I feel like, the things. But I feel like at the end of the day, that's kind of his brand, like I don't know, like I feel like that's his brand, like niggas who don't care, or niggas who just like are kind of like, I wouldn't say like insane, but kind of just like like I don't know, not insane, but like just have this like, yo, like, I like unpolished, or like not really like he's media, like Joe is media savvy, but he's not really media trained. Like, I feel like it's just like, yeah, like, like I'm hip to what's going on, but I don't really care. And so like I feel like it shows at times, and so like I think that's just kind of like my quirk with him about that. And just like, I don't know, it's just very much like that's just the brand that he's on. But I don't really feel like, his shit should be really taken seriously. And I think that's kind of just like, always the thing about the internet is that like while you yourself might not take it seriously, other people are like, fucking, absorbing that shit as fucking gospel. That's the whole thing about with Exit. So like kind of like, why I was just like kind of like, like he's, for a lot of people, that's XXXTentacion is their Tupac. which is so like, which sounds so like blasphemous or whatever, depending on who you ask, but very much the truth, you know. Like I like that's like kind of one of the things about like dying sometimes, is that like it puts your fucking legacy on HGH, you know. And it's not, and this comparison isn't really just about any other rappers that's died, because Jimmy Wapo is, no one's writing articles about, is Jimmy Wapo the new Tupac, or is Chinks the new Tupac, or was Doe B the new Tupac or whatever. You know, it's very much like this, like, you know, with like this person and things like that. And so like, you know, and much like Tupac shit, people are you know, and I guess like to some extent big, like people are still like working off of the death, you know, like they're still getting some burn off of the death, you know. And so it's just like very interesting being on the other side of that, or kind of like being able to like kind of like get like contextualize it, because I was like 2 years old when Tupac died, but I can see the effect on it just through music, or even through my parents and shit like that, and kind of just like how that's like viewed. Oh shit, Raven Prime. I wonder if a one hit will kill those, and then I won't have to do the health switch. Okay. Yeah, I should probably use a one hit move and not a two hit move. Okay, shit. Alright, let's see. Lex is like a shit. I knew that would happen. Fuck. Wait, why am I blocking? I'm probably not gonna die, but let's see. Oh, that killed. But yeah, like it's like, you know, it's a very like weird like thing to kind of just like see happening. Like even just like with the whole Vic Mensa shit, like that, like Vic, I feel like it's very bizarre that people don't want to hold you accountable. People don't want to hold people accountable when they lived, but they especially don't want people to like, you know, hold people accountable when they die either. And so it's kind of just like, when can you really hold people accountable? And, you know, like the whole shit with like Vic Mensa, I felt like it wasn't really like, as far as just like some like as far as like, you know, just niggas talking on people or even like dissing goes, like it wasn't really like that big of a deal. Also, like the verses, like the Cypher verse is actually pretty cool. I kind of hate the fact that they bleeped out so much of it, or at least just like, you know, like release a version of it on YouTube or whatever. Like I felt like the verse was good, but what did he say that was wrong? And then even like the addressing of it is like, you know, like he said, like, you know, it's like it always sucks when rappers die to gun violence. It's also just, yeah, like, which is true, but I think it's like the making martyrs and legends out of like abusers or whatever is something that does need to stop. And it's kind of like, you know, it's like shit, like how much, like, you know, like niggas weren't holding him accountable when he was alive. And it's like, you know, like, and it shows not just through X or whatever, but it shows through just like even the niggas that aren't young, like fucking like Fabulous or whatever. Like yeah, I get that he got married, but everyone really just like sidestepped and just just stopped talking about what had happened or whatever, just for it to kind of like resurface back as if nothing happened, or even just the whole shit with 6ix9ine. Like that dude is a fucking he's a like you know, he's a sexual predator. Like he fucked it, like he had sex with a 13-year-old, and it like admitted it, broke the second chance basically, and then still got no time. You know, like I feel like it's kind of just like we can't really talk about how it's like fucked up to wanna, you know, bring these things up when you die, but we're also not trying to hold people accountable when they live either. You know, like there's been no repercussion for anything. I feel like, to be honest, the last artist that I can really remember like who was like who had it all and really like lost like who had it all and then like got that shit like yanked away the second that they like did, you know, they did some reprehensible shit, would honestly have to be Chris Brown. To be honest, like I feel like it's like I feel like when that shit happened or whatever, which by the way I feel like is like a very interesting detail that doesn't get mentioned, is the fact that he turned himself in. But when he did all that, like radio stopped fucking with him, they stopped playing his songs, you know, he had to do like community service and shit like that. And you know, like he actually, as far as like the what one can actually do to be held accountable, he to my knowledge was held accountable like way more than anyone that I can think of in recent memory. And while, you know, his star has definitely faded, I think I can somewhat appreciate the fact that he didn't like Louis C.K. it, where he was just like, you know, I'm gonna bring this up, I'm not gonna do any type of like time or like, you know, lose some money or anything like that, and then I'm gonna come back at the Comedy Cellar, you know, like it's like, hey, people stopped fucking with me. You know, I couldn't perform at award shows. I couldn't, you know, get any type of like money or like any radio play. And mind you, this is Chris Brown at pretty much at like the end of 2008, top of 2009, when niggas were comparing him to fucking Michael Jackson, you know. And so like to kind of like, and it's like, you know, like the comeback had to be really fucking good. Like really, like the music had to be like good, because it's like and it didn't really happen overnight either. Like it was very much slowly. Like I remember he did like the comeback or whatever, like in 2000, like end of 2009 or whatever, and it, you know, it didn't really cap off. And I think just like the mild, like, you know, he had to get fucking Wayne and Swizz Beatz or whatever on that single for it to really, like, you know, pop off. And it really wasn't until the Fame album that shit really started cracking again. And that album was really, really good. It won a Grammy, you know. So I think kind of like that's really, I feel like, as far as like the meter goes, for just like being held accountable, where like, you know, like you actually lose out on shit, you lose out on endorsements, you know, like the Michael Jackson comparisons, or just like the megastar comparisons, that shit's never happening again. Like when, like, you know, Chris Brown, like I think that's to me like some semblance of accountability. Is like, you know, you like, yeah, you kind of get to come back, but it's like, you know, you're not coming back the same. You know, like when like that's a part of the legacy now. And it's, to be honest, and it's kind of like when I think of Chris Brown, is definitely much like a lot of like, you know, the potential kind of being withered away, which I feel like is like, you know, an okay thing to happen. I feel like that's what happened. That should be what happens when you fuck up. You know, you should like that's true accountability. It's not, you know, you don't get to you can't work your way back up to 97%. You can work your way back up to 85 or 70. You know, but it's like, you know, like in order, like the tarnish has to be there. You know, it's like you can't just have shit go back to normal. It's like I feel like that's like the last true sense of accountability with like artists, especially just like culturally. Like niggas were not really fucking with him like that at all, and so I think that's kind of just like really the last parts of that, to be honest. And I think it's just like very alarming, especially because now like this genre is the popular genre. Like it's officially the top genre, and so it's kind of just like, much like with anything that's like developing and starting to get popularity, be it people, you know, like people movements or just like cultures or whatever, certain things that aren't really like kosher per se, are are starting to be looked at with a magnifying glass. And so it's kind of like, I feel like this type of refinement into just like scoping out people that are abusers and have been able to get away with their behavior, have their behavior excused, I think is something that should be happening. And I feel like there's often kind of like this sense of, well, we're washing or now choosing to get like clean out our culture or like do this type of refinement because, you know, money's involved or because white people are involved. And it does feel like this sense of like how gentrification works. You know, it's like what, like it's not a bad thing that your community that was a food desert is now starting to have, like, you know, farmers markets put in and Whole Foods put in. It's an issue that like it's being put in right around the time that black and brown people are starting to get kicked out, which is why I feel like it's like, you know, you have to like do it. You know, I feel like there is a way to do it, but I do think that, you know, the motivation shouldn't be because there's money involved. And to be honest, if anything, it's kind of like because money involved is why people weren't doing it in the first place. So I think to kind of just want to do it to kind of like, you know, have it reflect with the changing of the times is should be something that people should want to do on their own accord. You know, let's see how far am I in this. All right, 5 more battles, and that'll be roughly an hour. But yeah, you know, like I feel like you should want to do better. So just because, like, you know, like hip hop culture is getting older, and we're starting to see people that are in their ability to transition into being older. And you know, you don't want to. When you get older, you kind of start to care about, you know, like how things look in retrospect, and you don't want to have these things where it's like you don't want to revise history, but you definitely want to hope that you like improve on shit. You know, I remember I met up with my friend in high school. I bumped into him on the train, and like we were just like looking back and just like how we were, you know, as teenagers and shit like that, which is like, you know, it's not too long ago, but the people that we are now compared to the people that we were then, it definitely feels like that. Like it's kind of like, wow, like I was saying that, I was doing that, I was slightly embarrassed. I was glad. Like, you know, I felt embarrassed in which, like, damn, like, wow, I was really doing that a lot, but I felt glad in a way that I'm glad that I'm not like that now, or more so that I'm glad that I'm not like, damn, like, I miss doing that or whatever. Because then it's like, you know, you know, like, I think being a teenager, or just growing up in general, like, you know, you're gonna act and do shit and say shit that's not really cool, or like, you know, looking back, it's kind of like, you know, like, got like, it's like fucking stupid or whatever. But I think it's kind of just like you have to appreciate it and not revise it. You know, like, I feel like, you know, looking at it now, it seems like so like weird, but you know, but like for the like, you know, looking at it through a 2018 22-year-old POV, how I was acting when I was 17 years old is not okay. Like, that's not okay, but just definitely just like on some other shit. But for that time when I was 17, that's the norm, you know. And I think having to understand that that was like the norm doesn't necessarily mean that like it was okay, because even then I feel like it probably wasn't okay. But I think like not making this like, you know, like not becoming guilt ridden over it, but understanding like, hey, that was the time. I don't excuse it, but I'm definitely glad I'm not like that now. And I think that's kind of just like the important thing of like, you know, not being that way. Because especially just like as a you know, being older, like I would like to think that I'm not on the same shit that I was on when I was 17. you know, especially just like all the shit that I've gone through in between the time of me being 17 and me being, you know, 22 and shit, you know, like I would like to think that my views reflect growth, and for both of us it did. And I was like, man, like I'm like, it's like, I'm not necessarily sure that I would take some of that shit back. I mean, like some things, like obviously I would, but as a whole, I'm not sure I would take it back. Like, you know, like I don't necessarily, like I wouldn't change anything. Like looking back, I wouldn't change anything. Looking forward though, I would not do that shit again. Like, you know, I would definitely do things differently. And so, like, I think that's just like kind of the growth that you just want in anything, you know. It's like whether it just be looking at how you were as a person or the old work that you did, you know. I think, you know, looking at it and not, you know, liking it for what it is, but also seeing the flaws in it isn't really a bad thing. You know, I look at like old pieces that I've written or old, like, you know, things that I edited, and it's like, you know, like I enjoy it, but I don't really feel like, you know, like this is the peak or anything like that. Like I feel like I can always look at anything I've done, you know, and feel like, oh, like I you know, I have notes for myself. Like, like if I could time travel, I would definitely give my 17-year-old self like notes, like, hey, maybe don't say this, or you seem to think this a lot, you might want to refine it. But I don't want to give myself too many notes, because it's like, you know, then I feel like I'd be altering myself. And so, you know, like I think that's kind of just like the fine balance you want to find, just whether it be with culture, you know, music or anything like that, because you know, like I don't want to, you know, wipe out some of the things that makes, you know, like rap or hip hop what it is. But you definitely want to evolve and shit like that, and it's like, and trying to like wipe it out or erase it completely is just dangerous. Like that's why you know, it allows for certain like people to like, or certain things to just come in that are even worse. Like it's why I don't like Post Malone. I dislike Post Malone, and I think he's a fucking vulture. Also, we have made it to the final battle. Or at least like for the standard boss, so I think I'll be able to take him on. But yeah, like I dislike Post Malone. I feel like him trying to like basically wipe away hip hop culture and hip hop as like viewing it as a genre is fucking dangerous, especially when he basically got big through his proximity to hip hop and hip hop culture. And the fact that he has a song about White Iverson and not knowing who the fuck Allen Iverson is jarring, and just like, you know, like his fucking like his whole appearance is basically fucking hip hop or whatever. Like imagine if fucking Paul Wall was Paul Wall, but trying to act like, you know, but trying to like, you know, erase the hip hop part of who Paul Wall is. It'd be fucking crazy. And so that's why you kind of have to grow and monitor these things, because it's not just about the problematic shit, it's also about the vultures within the industry too. Like you know, it's like when I say like hip hop needs to change, it's not just about like niggas like X or whatever that like, or 6ix9ine, but it's also about like your Leor Cohens, you know, like the people that are taking advantage, like labels that, you know, are trying to wipe out or like, you know, create carbon copies of artists. You know, I feel like these are just always the big things. It's just that, you know, wanting to, you know, handle things within our community, I feel like it's just like it's always seen as just like this sense of like a distraction from the bigger things, but it's just like, you know, it's kind of hard to kind of ignore them because they both affect you just in different ways. I think that's kind of just like the true gripe about white supremacy sometimes is just that, like, you know, there's so many issues that we have to handle intra-racially, but we can't because we have to fucking address the oppression that affects us outside of our race. And so like, it kind of like becomes a sense of, you know, do you want to, you know, it's kind of like you become a bit difficult because it's kind of like, oh, like there's bigger fish to fry. and so now it's kind of just like it becomes very hard. But we've made it to the end of the Blackest Night Marshal's Manhunter ladder, and we've unlocked the card. The stats are very nice. I think I'm definitely gonna go through do a run through this again. But you know, for anyone, if this does get listened to, thank you. Thank you for listening, and this has been a Let's Play of Injustice Mobile, and this is the pilot, so hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I definitely had fun playing.